All right, we just got back from seeing Thor Love and Thunder, and I know this took a long time to get to it, but I had a very busy schedule which prevented me from seeing the movie. But I know you saw it ahead of time?
Yes, I did saw it ahead of time, so this was my second time seeing it.
Yeah, this was my first time seeing it, but I had to sort of prepare for this one, because I heard some mixed to positive reviews about it.
Yes, there has been some mixed reviews, either by the fans, I've also seen it as well.
So what I did to prepare for this was I actually rewatched the first 3 Thor movies, so I kind of want to do a little recap of Thor's story in the MCU. The first Thor film was, in my mind, one of the best Phase 1 movies.
Oh, yeah?
What are your feelings on that?
Thor, first one, was a really good one. I know that for sure. It did kind of like get off the origin in terms of the Marvel Thor, basically, with Jane, being his love interest and Loki being
the bad guy.
Yeah, being the bad guy.
For me, I actually thought it was a pretty good introduction piece for the character within the larger MCU, and where it takes place within the story makes sense, because if you watch the Avengers immediately after the first Thor, because technically that's where it fits in continuity, timeline-wise, it was one of those 2011 blockbusters that, 2011 was actually a pretty exciting year for blockbusters, from what I remember.
Yep.
And I liked Chris Hemsworth as Thor. I thought he was a really good pick for this role. Because, did you know that Tom Hiddleston was going to be Thor originally?
I think I might have heard about that a while back, but I'm not quite too sure. But that was rumored?
Well, he was one of the contenders, but then they went with Chris Hemsworth because he kind of looks more like the stronger side of Thor, whereas Tom Hiddleston he would have had to build up all that muscle.
Oh, yeah.
But anyway, I am quite a big fan of the original Thor. I thought it was one of Phase 1's best movies. And a lot of Phase 1 movies in the Marvel Cinematic Universe I really enjoy, except for Iron Man 2. That one was definitely the weakest of Phase 1 in my mind.
Iron Man 2 wasn't too bad, I would say. I know Iron Man 1 was really good. But
yeah, I mean, Iron Man 2 was okay, but you can't compare it to the first one in terms of quality, because the first one was such an amazing movie. Mm-hmm. But I feel like when the first Thor came out, people kind of dissed it because it was a fish out of water story, but I didn't mind that. Yeah. It was supposed to teach him how to be a good hero and sort of put aside your selfishness and become someone better, Yeah. And all the supporting characters I really enjoyed. I enjoyed the action, the tone. And I mean, it was just kind of one of those movies where every time I come back to it, I just get that fun feeling or that good feeling I had back in 2011, Yeah. Then, obviously, in the Avengers, we see Thor team up with the other heroes. Yeah. He's obviously picking up the story threads with Loki. Mm-hmm. They stop him in the Chitauri. And then we get to Thor: The Dark World, which fans consider to be one of the weaker MCU movies.
Yes, very much the weaker one, yeah. I don't think you will find many people who would say that that's either a really good one or at the very least, a B.
Yeah, I mean, I remember when it came out, I really disliked it because this was coming off of the aftermath of Iron Man 3, which is a movie I really do not like. Jeez, I hated Iron Man 3.
And I don't think you're alone in that one in terms of Iron Man 3. There has been some great mixed reviews with Iron Man 3.
Yeah, the problem with Iron Man 3 is that the trailers kind of suggested we would get something darker and more serious, Because I was thinking Iron Man 3 is going to be to Iron Man what Dark Knight Rises was to Batman, Yeah. But the way they handled the Mandarin, just no. And the actual villains we do have, not that great.
Yeah.
But I remember watching it some time ago, and I mean, Iron Man 3 is a very boring movie, if you ask me.
Yeah.
So with Thor: The Dark World, I was hoping it would be better than Iron Man 3, and to a point, it's a step up. But the problem with it is, it's just like a very boring movie in my eyes.
Yeah, it's not very much of a step up. Even if you say a step up, but that's not really saying much.
Well, what I mean is, at least with Thor: The Dark World, the villain Malekith, stock supervillain, but at least it wasn't a fake out like the Mandarin was, And Malekith, basically all he wanted was to plunge the universe into darkness, restoring the realm of the Dark Elves. But really, it's with Thor: The Dark World, they wanted an epic fantasy, kind of like Lord of the Rings, but they're struggling because I'm sitting. I did rewatch the movie. They're like struggling to get up there, and it's like I'm just not invested in what's happening, you know.
Yeah.
And when his mother dies, Frigga, that's her name.
Oh yeah.
I mean, I just felt nothing because we didn't spend enough time with that character in the last movie.
No, but I don't think you spent a whole lot of time with her though throughout even the entire MCU. Like you may have spent a little time with her, but not a whole lot.
Yeah, it's just, I mean, you can't kill off a character and then I feel nothing because if I don't spend time with the character, I'm just not going to feel anything, you know?
Yeah, no. But I think it's more so of the more I want to say more to the character's development rather than like the audience do it. But you have to have the audience feel the affection, that effect as well.
Yeah. If you heard that little bang, sorry, I've got a timer because there's a small technical problem with the camera. You've probably seen it in the previous videos. But anyway, go on.
But yeah, I was about to say like. They were supposed to make it to where like the characters, respond or get affected by a significant other, again, being a parent's death. But to make it really effective, the audience also has to feel it as well a little bit. And not having spent a whole lot of time with her, like you said, you're not going to really feel that much.
I mean, the thing is, I didn't. There were some good things in Dark World. Like I didn't mind the acting. I didn't mind the action. Where I think the movie goes wrong, though, is it has that Avengers humor where the comedy is really killing the attention of... Sorry about that. Here, I'll do it this way. The comedy is basically really killing the tension of these scenes. Like, I'm getting into the moment, but then there's this distracting comedy, and it's like... You can have your humorous moments in a superhero movie, but if you do it, like, every 5 seconds, it's really distracting.
And I can see right below the comedy section already talking about something which I know you're going to bring up next. And speaking of comedy as well.
Hang on, we'll get to that. But basically, Thor the Dark World, I mean, I think it's slightly better than Iron Man 3. But the thing is, it's just not that great movie it needs to be. It just isn't, you know?
Yeah.
And I just feel like if you wanted to make an epic fantasy film like Lord of the Rings... Don't top Lord of the Rings, but make it feel like that, you know?
Yeah.
And the director of Thor the Dark World, Alan Taylor, I can't remember if he's done some Game of Thrones episodes or not, but I feel like I remember hearing he has.
I don't recall. I gotta take a look at that. I don't recall him ever appearing in a Game of Thrones, or at least in terms of like the ending credits or something like that.
Maybe he did. I gotta look up to date on that. But yeah. Very, very standard Marvel movie, Thor the Dark World was. But it was during that point, like in Phase 2, when Thor the Dark World came out, I was concerned we were going to see large dips in quality. But then The Winter Soldier came around, and everyone pretty much liked that one.
Yeah, that was a bounce back for the Marvel Cinematic Universe right there. Because Phase 2, like how you mentioned with Iron Man 3 and...
Thor the Dark World,
it wasn't getting all that great reputation. Until Captain America came around again, and then that's when people started to get, popping interest again.
Yeah, so that was that. And then, I mean, when Thor 3, which is Ragnarok, I know I kind of said this in previous vlogs, but I hated Thor Ragnarok. And to me, It is the worst film to come out of this franchise.
I know how you feel about it because of how we talk about it personally between you and I. But the Thor Ragnarok was a really good film in terms of it being a little bit more colorful. You have a villain in Hela. You have something... You're experiencing Asgard, and all this other creativity. Hulk is in it too. I know it may not be the Hulk or that Planet Hulk that you wanted to be...
Yeah, I gotta talk about this. See, I don't mind the color in Thor Ragnarok. I don't mind that, because it's actually a tribute to Jack Kirby, who was a very colorful comic book writer and artist. Yeah. The problem, though, is that Thor Ragnarok could have been an epic fantasy film.
Yeah.
And it was also taking elements and adapting the Planet Hulk storyline, which is a storyline I really like.
Yeah.
And I feel if you adapt it properly, it would not only be like an epic superhero movie, it would be one of the greatest movies ever made if they did it right and put enough love and care into it. I know this because there's an animated Planet Hulk film,
Yeah.
and although it's very abridged and they change stuff and omit things to fit the 90-minute runtime, it's well done. It still captures the spirit of that comic. And Planet Hulk is not a comedy fest. Let me tell you that. It is not a comedy fest. So when you overload Planet Hulk with comedy, it's like, And there are so many details they get wrong in the movie. The little discs that they put on their necks.
Yeah.
In the comic, the discs go on their chest, not the neck.
Yeah.
And they're not that small. They still do the zappy thing,
Yeah.
but they're not that small. And the Grandmaster is not the leader of Sakaar. Let me tell you that. It's the Red King. So how does the Grandmaster fit into that? And also, Sakaar is not a garbage planet. It's a harsh desert world where only the strongest can survive. So how do you get that wrong? I don't know.
I will say this though: if the Planet Hulk from the Planet Hulk film was actually in Thor Ragnarok, I think the runtime would have been about an hour instead of, or less than an hour. I would say.
You could have made Thor Ragnarok a 3-hour movie and sort of figure out how to blend in all that Ragnarok and Planet Hulk stuff. And they even get Ragnarok wrong, because like in Norse mythology, Ragnarok is the end of days, you know?
Yeah, that's when Fenrir and Surtur and, well, Fenrir comes out and he
Fenrir the giant wolf, and then you got Surtur the fire demon.
Yep. And Fenrir actually is the one that kills Odin. He's the one that actually kills him instead of Odin, you know, as you saw in Ragnarok.
Well, well, the Norse mythology and the Marvel stuff are different, but I mean,
it is per se, yes. But in terms of Norse mythology, if we're talking about that, Odin was killed by Fenrir, or the giant wolf, you know.
Yeah, but the way I would have done it is like, so Thor gets captured by Surtur, right?
Yep.
And instead of all that comedy breaking the tension, Surtur's like, I have you now, Thor, and now you will be imprisoned while I destroy your world. And then Thor's like, but I will stop you no matter what, Surtur. And so he stops him. But he still gets these visions, even though he thinks he's prevented Ragnarok, you know?
Yeah.
And so people throughout the movie tell Thor, you only postponed it. Ragnarok is inevitable.
Yep, I mean...
And throughout the movie, he's sort of like, but I can still prevent it. I can still save Asgard. But eventually he comes to terms and accepts there are some things you can't prevent. They have to happen because you know not what your actions could unleash or what they could do.
Yeah.
And that's why I feel like... Because I rewatched it last night on the eve of this new movie we just saw, and I'm like, Ragnarok... It just could have been so much more than this comedy fest that they were going for. Because I hate it when the MCU does this. I hate it when they go overload on the comedy and sacrifice any interesting story in favor of that.
Yeah, but sometimes, though, at least in terms of people and viewers, if you have too much seriousness and little to no comedy, people may tend to get... snooze.
Well, I'm not saying they can't omit the comedy. It's just there needs to be a balance, you know? And the movie has no balance.
Yeah.
Which is not what I would do.
Yeah, and again, like I mentioned before with Planet Hulk, if they would have done it, he probably would have been crushing everything to bit size, which is why I said the runtime would have been a little...
Are you talking about the Hulk crushing everything and smashing everything?
Crushing, smashing everything, and using his brains a little bit too as well, because Planet Hulk in the animated film was very smart.
Yeah.
It was pretty smart.
Yeah, it's like a completely different character, and the reason why is because the Hulk feels more accepted on Sakaar than he did on Earth, because on Earth people fear him, and rightfully so, and even Bruce Banner knows this, but on Sakaar he's treated differently.
Yeah,
he's more accepted because... everybody there is a monster, and they've gone through their own trials and tribulations.
Yeah, and he's treated more as a respected warrior rather than a monster.
Yeah, so what I'm saying is, the Ragnarok could have been so much more, but they made it a comedy fest, and anyway, I hated it, I didn't like it. And I'm pretty sure there's other people that didn't like it, so don't be afraid to admit that, because whenever I tell people I don't like Thor Ragnarok, they're just baffled. They're like baffled, like, what? You hated that movie?
Yeah.
And I'm like, yeah, I hated it. I mean, I don't know. But there was this one instance I remember where I told someone I didn't like Thor Ragnarok, and you know what they said? They accused me of being a DC fan. And I'm like, I gotta talk about this, because do I look like the kind of guy who prefers one side over the other? I like both companies. Are you kidding me? I mean, both companies, they have their good stuff and their not so good stuff. There's something to like in both, because I'm so sick of this Marvel versus DC thing that's been going on, you know? I know it was going on when Zack Snyder was making his stuff, but I'm just so sick of this Marvel versus DC argument, because I just find it so childish and petty, you know?
Yeah, I mean, it goes for a lot of things, though, too. I mean, it's not just DC versus Marvel. You also got the console wars, too.
Oh, I was going to bring that up, because I remember during the Xbox 360, PS3 time, you know, there were so many Xbox fanboys that were like, oh, Xbox is cool, and you play the other thing? Ah, sacrilege! They were like that, and I'm like, what's wrong with liking the PlayStation, you know?
Well, here's the thing I would probably put in this console war. You have PlayStation, which is all the exclusive and single players game, versus Xbox, which has all your multiplayer. There are some exclusive games, don't get me wrong, but mainly multiplayer because of the Xbox Live and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, the worst case offenders, though, are the PC master race.
Yep.
They are so annoying in the video game community because they claim PC is the best way to play the game, but I'm like, but it's expensive. Like, some of us can't afford that.
It is expensive on one hand, though. I'm not a PC gamer myself. I have seen some friends and working, you know, and again, I have a new job now, but when I did work at Best Buy for a bit, there are some people who, you know, who wanted to get like a PC. Pre-built PCs are pretty expensive. And if you want to build one yourself, that can get even more expensive. Because I kind of sort of treat it as like getting a brand new car. Once you get your new PC and everything else like that right away, guess what? It's up and running right away. It's fresh, it's brand new. You're off and running. But after a while, you have to do some maintenance on it. And that can get expensive.
So yeah, what I was trying to get at here is like, I don't like everything, okay? But I don't hate everything. So it's like, when I say I don't like Thor Ragnarok, that doesn't mean I'm a DC fan. I just think it could have been so much more.
That's new that you told me. That one's a new one right there. I don't think I've heard that one before, being of someone accused as a DC fan just because of one film and someone didn't like one film.
It's comic book fans being petty and stuff, and superhero fans being really childish. I don't like it. So anyway, That's the gist. So this movie, same director as Ragnarok, and because I disliked the third movie so much, I went into this one thinking I was going to hate it, you know? But by the time it started and wrapped up, I didn't hate this movie. There you go, guys. I didn't hate Thor Love and Thunder. I actually think this is probably the second best Thor movie in that little subset.
Out of the four.
Yeah, out of the four. It's the second best Thor movie out of the set we've got. And I will explain why. Because, I mean, I didn't expect much from this based on the trailers, you know. I was kind of expecting a standard Marvel movie, and it was. But I was kind of surprised with this movie's tone. It's almost like someone told the director, Taika Waititi, Taika, you might have made some people mad with the last one, so can you try and not be as funny with this one? And then Taika like protests. He's like, "But I want to be funny. People like my funny." And then some like higher up in Disney or Marvel was like, "Look, I think we may need to tone the comedy down a bit. We need some more serious stuff. So can you not do funny?"
Well, in this depiction with gore being black, you know, because there's a scene too, or that whole sequence of it being black and white, God killer basically. That you can't get too funny about it being a god killer. I know Ragnarok, it's, you know, you can't make fun out of, you know, a world-ending scenario, stuff like that.
But I think with Ragnarok, it's like, if we make it too dark and serious, we might scare the kids and the families away. We don't want to lose our big money makers. Oh no.
Yeah, I know. So yeah, something like that though too. But going back to Love and Thunder too. But since the colorness kind of like drops and you're going to black and white a little bit, kind of gets a little bit more serious tone a little bit, especially when you're dealing with a god killer. You know.
Yeah, and
basically the equivalent of a serial killer in god form.
Yeah, and I want to get into this, but I quite enjoyed this movie. I thought it was worthy of being a Marvel film.
Yeah.
I do think though there are good things, and then there's things I didn't like. But for the most part, this was, again, not as bad as I thought it was going to be. Because I expected before we made this video that I would be screaming and raging. That is not the case here. And I like it when some films do this, where I think I'm going to dislike it, but then it ends up being better than I thought it would be.
And again, I watched it the first time. I thought it was pretty good. And then seeing it the second time, I still think it was pretty good.
Yeah, so this is where I kind of want to talk about spoilers in a sense, but it's been a while since this movie's been out. So we're kind of going to go through the moments or things we liked or things we didn't like so much.
And for you, probably a couple things that you were pretty confused about, and I had to, talk to you about a little bit, as we were kind of like getting ready for this.
Yes. So, with that out of the way, I will say this film has a very strong opening.
Yeah.
We open in the desert, or what I think is a desert, and we see Christian Bale's character, Gore the God Butcher, only before he becomes the God Butcher, and he's got a kid who's dying in the desert.
His daughter.
Yes. And so he obviously mourns her loss when she passes away, but he stays with her the whole time, like a good father should.
Yep.
So then he traverses through the desert and comes across this oasis.
Yes, he heard voices, and which led him to the oasis, which he found like water, food, everything else like that. But he did stumble upon, he got cut, and nobody noticed it at the time right away, but a bladed sword, which happens to be the necro sword.
The necro sword, kind of like something a necromancer would wield.
Yeah, and also it is part of the hive, basically, how it's basically part of like Venom's sort of like symbiote, basically.
With the darkness?
Yep.
I kind of just saw the darkness not symbiote-ish, but more like...
It is actually symbiote-ish, actually.
That would be the first time we got No, this ain't the first time there's a symbiote in the MCU, because at the end of No Way Home, a little piece of Venom was left behind.
Yep.
But this is so strange. I didn't see this as a symbiote. I saw it more as darkness.
It is darkness, but it is a symbiote, because it is still kind of like a hive, sort of like... Because it's still function, because you heard voices too.
Yeah, I heard the voices too.
Yeah.
But anyway, so he's going through the oasis, and then he comes across this god that I don't recognize. What was the name of this one again?
I forgot his name, but it was the god though that he worshipped though. When he was worshiping, he found him, but then he kind of realized a cold reality, you could say. In terms of like if you were to meet a god.
Yeah, he basically is like, please save me or give me salvation, and the god's like, really? I ain't gonna give you that.
Yeah, he kind of like, what salvation?
Yeah, it's like you meet these gods you worship, and it's like, we're not gonna give you what you want. You're just immortal. You figure it out. It's your problems.
Yeah.
And so with this betrayal, he like gets the sword and then stabs the god, who bleeds gold blood, by the way.
Oh, yeah, he did bleed gold blood, but again, he was being choked out, too, by that god, so he couldn't really grab the sword. It was more the sword going to him, because he had the thought of revenge and vengeance.
Yeah.
Trying to avenge his dead daughter, and avenge in terms of, like, being betrayed by the god. So, he killed that god, and made a new vow.
Yeah, and so this is something that I think me and a few other people were comparing this to. He loses a family member and then goes on a vengeance quest to kill all the gods. Does that remind you of anybody?
Yeah, but unfortunately he doesn't have two dual-wielding flaming swords, basically, and he's not painted red. He is in white, though. He is covered in old white, like a certain character that the PC owns, PlayStation owns.
Yeah, that would be Kratos in God of War. Gore the God Butcher, he's not fully Kratos, but he has some similarities to him, and there's a little similarity to God of War here.
Yep.
The thing is, though, this movie only shows him, like, maybe slaughtering gods off screen. We don't actually see these fights.
No, you don't. But at the same time, when you do see him, though, in action, which is mainly, against the Asgards.
Yeah, although...
he does quite effective, at least for the first part.
Yeah, and when he kills that first god, I expected this to happen, and it does, but the other pantheons, they get put on high alert about this, and so they all gather in this one particular area, which we'll get to. But I do like this because in God of War 4, although I have not played the game fully, I do know based on what I heard online, is that they established that after Kratos destroyed the Greek pantheon, the other pantheons were put on high alerts. Like, what happened to the Greeks cannot happen to us. And so we will do whatever it takes to make sure this guy doesn't come around and basically slaughter all of us.
Or anyone of the sort, to do something like that as well. But unfortunately, in each pantheon, though, if you go to each one of them a little bit, there is a certain somebody that will be kind of like Kratos and try to destroy its own pantheon.
Yeah, that is the case. Well, I haven't played the fourth game entirely. Is that what happens?
There is somebody who kind of goes on a very similar path to Kratos, basically.
I got it.
Very similar, even though he doesn't have a kid and a wife per se, but he has a mom. But it's more of he despise her like Kratos despise Zeus. But, Kratos, basically learning from his, past, decides to, instead of allowing him to do the very similar thing, he's basically said, no, don't do what I did. What I did back then was stupid.
I gotta play that game in its entirety. I haven't found the time for it. But anyway, so yeah, he basically wants to annihilate all the gods because I can't just get one. I can't get my own. I gotta get everybody else so I can make a world where no one's suffering under the reign of the gods.
Basically, yes. It's more of killing the gods because he believed that all the gods were basically liars and not going to be helpful. So get rid of all the unhelpful gods, or all the gods because they are useless or unhelpful, basically.
It would have been kind of cool if we had, a fight scene, tons of fight scenes between Gore and these other gods. But all these gods, they'll just kind of want to hide away and stuff. Because you know how in the God of War games, the Greek ones, for the most part, at least put up a good fight.
Yeah.
Especially in God of War 3, because you're going around slaughtering all of them. The only one, well, actually there's two, I remember from the original trilogy, that don't get slaughtered. They are Aphrodite and Artemis. Because Artemis never shows up after the first game, so I don't know what happened to her.
Yeah, and in terms of the gods that actually did fight per se, they have this, God of War 3. You have this, basically, the traitor of God of War teaming up with their arch nemesis, the Titans. You're probably on high alert and you're at, conflict at this point.
Yeah, I mean, that is one way of looking at it, but I just kind of wanted to see, actual fights between Gore and the other gods, which maybe due to budget constraints and a bunch of other stuff, we couldn't see that. It just would have been nice to have had a little bit of that. They would have been epic scenes had they actually filmed them, but I guess we can't show everything.
Yeah, no. But they also kind of treated very similarly how basically these gods that we know, or a lot of around the world knows, those guys being class A, or first class, tier 1s basically.
So basically the highest ranking ones don't get slaughtered while the lower ones, they end up...
Or how the tier 1s treat the other ones that don't get a lot of attention basically as lower tiers. Kind of like how in society a little bit how first world and second world are treated, how they are treated, and third world countries are not as treated as highly.
That's actually a pretty good analogy right there.
Because first world and second worlds, they kind of talk to each other a little bit, mainly first world, but how we depict a third world country, a lot of their issues we don't bring up.
Yeah, that's actually a really good analogy on how to compare this two.
Yeah, because again, Zeus called the other gods who were dying so quickly minor gods, basically.
His uncaring attitude, which I'll get into that. But yeah, I mean, for someone who's called the God Butcher, he does live up to his name, and he is a very intimidating presence. I will say that because. I got to talk about Christian Bale's acting. Yeah. He was really good as Gore the God Butcher in this. Oh, yeah. I really enjoyed him. But his performance reminded me of another villain, at least in his facial expressions and mannerisms. It kind of reminded me of Voldemort, almost.
Why? Because he's pale and barely have a nose or something like that?
Yeah, and when he's going, or he's making these exclamation faces, or he's raising his eyebrows and being scary. Yeah. It's like he was imitating Voldemort. Yeah. And I was did Bale was I really liked I forget the actor's name who played Voldemort, but I really liked his performance, so I want to emulate that.
Yeah.
And
You could also say because of the smile, because he did play Batman, and there was a Joker who does a lot of the smile. He probably was like, let's see if I gotta try to replicate like a Joker smile.
replicate Heath Ledger a little bit. There were maybe a few moments toward the end, because the whole movie, I was expecting Gore to put on the Bat voice, you know?
Oh, yeah.
And there were moments at the end where, okay, it kind of sounds like the Bat voice almost, but there were also a few moments where his Bruce Wayne voice was slipping through.
Yeah.
And I kind of expect him to go, Thor, tell me where Stormbreaker is. Then you have my permission to die.
Yeah, but at the same time, it's like most of the time Stormbreaker was there though, except when she throws the Stormbreaker away, and then he's like, call it back.
Well, he didn't quite sound full on Bat voice, but he made it sound like, call it back now.
Yeah.
Or he could have gone, where are you keeping Stormbreaker? And then Thor's like, you'll never find it. I swear to you. And then Gore's like, swear to me. Like, they could have, come on, do the Bat voice. They could have done that.
Could have, but except the whole like, where is it? I mean, again, Thor threw it away. So it's like, where is it? I have no idea. I just threw it across there, and it's now gone into like space. I don't know if it went like light years or maybe 10 light years. You find it.
You think you're the only one who can say... Actually, I don't know where I was going with that line.
Yeah.
I just wanted to do more Bat voice because it's pretty cool. But anyway, so yeah, and there's also kind of a horror angle that Christian Bale provided with this guy. Like, he made him look very frightening in a way.
Well, yeah, when you're basically a serial killer to the gods, you probably had to have like some sort of scary elements to it.
Yeah, but this horror angle that they did with Gore, it kind of reminded me, because he looked like Ruvik from The Evil Within, if you ever saw gameplay of that. I've played that game in its entirety.
I believe I might have The Evil Within, yeah.
But yeah, he looks like Ruvik from The Evil Within with the white cloak and the white pale skin and maybe some burn-ish markies.
Yeah, maybe not played it actually. I more probably watched like some walkthroughs or gameplays basically of it.
Yeah, like you could have had him like almost say this line. There's a line in The Evil Within, and I'm gonna say it here with Gore, where he's like, "I know who you are, Thor. I know what you crave, what you fear. Would you be able to live with yourself knowing what I'm gonna make you do? Poor Zeus couldn't. Too bad you got dragged into this. But don't worry, you're mine to do with as I please." Like, you could have done that almost.
Almost, maybe similarly, but
But if you wanted to make Gore really scary, you could have gotten Jackie Earle Haley to play this guy almost, because he was Rorschach in Watchmen, but he was also Freddy Krueger in the Nightmare on Elm Street remake. And he also voiced him as Ruvik in The Evil Within, so you could have had Jackie Earle Haley play this guy, and it still would have been a great performance.
probably could have too, yeah, but...
Or you could have gotten Tony Todd to play this character, which he was the Candyman, but he was also the Fallen in Transformers Revenge of the Fallen.
Oh, yeah?
You could have gotten Tony Todd to play Gore the God Butcher, and he would have been like, I am the writing on the wall, the whisper in the shadows. Without these things, I am nothing. So now I must shed the blood of the gods. Like, you could have had scary lines like that.
Or if you really wanted to, because again, you make a comparison to Kratos, you could have had the actual actor play.
T.C. Carson?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I did kind of was like, when I saw the trailers and all the promotional ads, like, he could have had him go, do you have business with me? We do, but this is not the manner to discuss it in. I see it no other way. Yeah. Like, you could have done that, almost, but... You could, like I said, you could have gotten other actors to play this guy, and they still would have been great performances. You could have even gotten the actor of Voldemort himself.
Oh, yeah,
but either way, like, Bale did a really good job with this role. He really nailed how intimidating and scary this guy can actually be. Yeah. And when he's in the Shadow Realm, as they call it, it's a very black and white. I mean, it looked like a planet, but I want to say it's some kind of dimension, even though...
Yeah, I want to say it's more of a dimension, just that planet was there, and he just basically kind of made it colorless.
Yeah, and it was really cool when the movie went into this black and white look.
Yeah.
Normally, black and white like the historically movies have done really well with it, but nowadays if you're going to do black and white in your movie, it has to mean something, and it does here, and I really like how they put it to good use here. But when they called it the Shadow Realm, I kind of expected Marek, Bakura, and Zork to show up almost.
RMP, creator of Yu-Gi-Oh!
Oh yeah, he passed away. Not sure how though.
Yeah, I believe it was like some sort of disease or something like that. But yeah, he did pass away though.
Yeah,
when you mentioned Yu-Gi-Oh! I was like, oh god, yeah.
Yeah, I kind of expected Marek, Bakura, and Zork to show up, you know?
Yeah.
Or at least other evil characters within Yu-Gi-Oh!
Yeah.
But, I mean, maybe some fan parody will do that. I don't know.
Where's the Jimmy's dad when you can just send him to the Shadow Realm? Jimmy Neutron's dad.
What's that?
You never seen that meme?
I've never seen that meme. What is that meme?
It's basically Jimmy Neutron's dad saying, "You're going to the Shadow Realm, Jimbo." And he has blue eyes, white dragon, and he has like the whole this thing basically. People in the comment section will probably will understand what I'm talking about. They would know.
Yeah, so anyway, really, really good villain, and I do like Bale's performance, so that's all I'm going to say on that. So the other thing I want to talk about is the recapping of like several different things throughout Thor's history. Like when we recap the other 3 movies or the other adventures we went through, it's basically a clip show.
Yeah.
Where we see, you know, all the various moments, because Korg's reciting all these events.
Yep.
And the one thing that kind of bothered me about this was we see baby Thor in battle.
Oh, yeah.
Like, first off, and it is a big thing, why would you bring your infant son into battle like that? It doesn't seem like a good idea.
No, but when you bring Viking and dying in battle as an honor and stuff like that, and if you're, again, you go off to battle, you want to die, I mean, that's one way to learn. I mean, heck, you got kids fighting in the movie, for crying out loud.
Yeah, there were child soldiers in this movie, which I'm like, you really want to send kids into battle? That was kind of one of those things that really bothered me. It's like, you want to send kids into battle, yet you risk ending up getting these kids killed. And it's like,
yeah.
I mean, I don't know. It bugged me seeing kids go into battle like that.
Well, it was either stand in the corner and die, or die in glorious battle, as Vikings would have it.
I was kind of surprised how like skilled the child warriors were when they were given the power of Zeus and stuff.
Thor.
Or yeah, like Thor gave him the power.
Yep.
Of Thor. I thought you know, with the lightning bolt, I thought he gave him the power of Zeus.
No, but since Zeus and Thor are very similar in terms of lightning and thunder, so to speak, it kind of meshes well. So it would make sense that Thor, with Thunderbolt, would handle its ability very well.
Yeah, I guess so. Anyway, during the first recap, though, we then find out that Thor got rid of all that body fat that he had in Endgame, which is one of the things about Endgame I really disliked. So I'm happy they rectified that, and we got Thor back to what he was.
What's wrong with handling depression by ways of eating?
Okay, let me explain. The way I would have done it is, after Thor like slices off Thanos' head, he realizes I did what I set out to do, and so he basically abandons his old life as a hero and a god. So he finds a new purpose in life by setting up a new Asgard, but instead of like fattening up, he takes up like fishing almost, because New Asgard's close to the sea.
Yep.
So he takes up fishing, and he sort of becomes Quint from Jaws almost, you know? A sort of like Sailor Man kind of figure. And it gave him a new purpose, and it's sort of a coping mechanism for him.
Yeah.
But the way they did it in Endgame, it's like, that's not really something I would have done. And I probably talked about this, I remember I talked about this in the Doctor Strange video, but this is not something I would have done. So I was happy to see that they rectified that.
Well, I mean, again, people handle depression or, darkest of times differently. Thor handled it in terms of eating and sticking inside for the most part.
I know, it's just he could have done a different path, you know?
I mean, he was healthy and stuff like that, and everything was going wrong. I mean, you probably want to sit down or something like that for the most part. Whereas Doctor Strange, on the other hand, his alternative reality version, when he handled depression, he went more demonic.
Well, that to me was a better use of it with Doctor Strange, but with Thor, I didn't I don't know, it just could have been so much better.
Yeah.
But anyway, so they fixed that, and then he's been going on adventures with the Guardians of the Galaxy,
Yep.
who are in this movie, but obviously they're just here to let you know, oh, we'll show up later in Guardians 3, but we just wanted to let you know Thor's been hanging around with us, and we gotta go away for now because this is his movie. You'll see us again in Volume 3. We can promise you that.
We'll see if he's in Volume 3. I thought he was, but that doesn't...
I don't think Thor's gonna show up in Volume 3.
Yeah, because originally before this movie, you would have thought that, okay, he may be involved in Volume 3 just because of how it ended, and he's going to go with them. But now them leaving him and him doing his other thing in his movie makes it's like, okay, he probably won't show up. Maybe he will, maybe as a cameo or something like that, who knows, but
We'll see where it goes.
mostly highly unlikely at this point.
But during one of the adventures with the Guardians, he's helping out these blue-skinned people fight off these, like, owl-looking alien things.
Yep. And it was successful for the most part.
Until he, like, went into the temple and completely smashed it up, destroying the enemy.
From the inside, because it was structurally there for like 5 seconds.
Yeah, I'm surprised these people didn't get mad at him and say something like, "You destroyed our sacred temple! How dare you!"
I mean, they did in a very more passive-aggressive way.
Well, I mean, that's not really the kind of response you would expect from people who put so much value in their temples.
You're from the Midwest, especially in Minnesota. Minnesota nice. Come on, passive-aggressiveness is always there.
Okay, you got me there. I know every place is different, but it's like, I don't know, like you treasure something that much, you value it that much, you would probably have a meltdown if it was destroyed or something, you know?
You would, so most people would have a meltdown, but these people seem like, they do not want to throw out their frustration. They try to discard that as best they can, so the best way they could do it is very much passive-aggressive.
Okay, I mean, that's probably a Taika Waititi thing, but it is what it is. So...
I mean, they just send them the goat.
Oh, the goats, yeah. These things, all they did throughout the whole movie was scream. And I know why, because there's funny goat videos on the internet where goats are screaming, you know?
I'm pretty sure they took one of that and just made it part of the movie.
Yeah, but it's like, I mean, these were more distractions, and I could have found them annoying, but
But they also turn out to be useful a little bit because again they were used for more engine basically.
Well, they were useful. It's just with all the constant screaming, it's like someone I bet was screaming at the screen. We get it. It's a funny sound. We get it.
Well, I mean, again, like I said, they probably took one goat scream video off of YouTube or something like that and made it a part of their film.
Something like that.
Yeah.
It's strange, like we got these screaming goats and they're kind of a big part of the movie, but I kind of would have just done something else, I guess. And there was another animal in this movie that was kind of interesting. It was space dolphins. And although they're called space dolphins, they make the whale sound, where they go...
Space dolphins, space whales, yeah. Yep, that sound, yep.
Yeah, I mean, they didn't really look like dolphins. They look more like whales.
Yeah.
Like, if you're going to call them a dolphin, at least give them a fin. But anyway, that's another thing. So, the second recap in this movie is the one that recaps Jane and Thor's romance.
Yep.
This, well, it was cliche. I'm going to say that. It was very cliche.
The stereotypical cliche of the ex, like the ex-girlfriend type of thing.
Yeah, we've seen, because the thing is, we have seen this in so many other types of stories. It's really all over a ton of rom-coms, Yeah. So which is interesting because Natalie Portman was in a rom-com, one of 3 of the early 2010s, where she was dating a character played by Ashton Kutcher, right? Mm-hmm. And so their romance is kind of similar to that. I have not seen the movie. I did read a plot synopsis, but it's like that,
Yeah.
It's that stereotypical romance where they get together, they really like each other, they go to a ton of events. He teaches her something, she teaches him something, but then there's a wedge that drives between them.
Yeah, and then they try to fill that wedge by doing separate things. Thor being a hero, so he does hero things. Jane, being a doctor, does doctor things.
Yeah, she does more scientific stuff.
Yep.
And so, I mean, you could have found a way to like not make this stereotypical. You could have done it differently. But it does give an explanation, though, for how they left each other. Because in Ragnarok, when Thor says, "Oh, Jane and I, she dumped me, no, I dumped her," or something like that, I'm like, really? You dumped Natalie Portman? You don't do that, man. Not cool.
Yeah, but that, I mean, again, like, listening to him, because again, knowing Thor, you could probably would have picked up, like, what's the story? What's the story? Come on, you didn't really dump her. You're trying to hide it, like usual. What's the full story? And this brings up the full story. She wrote him as he would say, a handsome note.
Yeah.
And he read it.
Yeah, writing a note telling him, like, this won't work out. I know Tony Stark's done this.
Yeah.
Because in Iron Man 3, he wrote Rebecca Hall's character a note the morning after and stuff. So, I don't know, just kind of, whenever they recount these montages in Korg's voice, whenever they recount them, it's like they're very lighthearted. And I get what Taika Waititi's doing here, because this is his style.
Yeah.
He wants to do something very lighthearted, but it's like you're kind of depicting it in a very cliche way. I have seen this before.
Yeah.
So you could have found a way to do something different with it, but I guess it is what it is. So, yeah, I guess, you know. And then with the ending recapping of, like, what's happening afterward. Well, obviously we had to throw in another Korg narration, but that one I didn't mind, because it's sort of recapping everything and what's to come.
Yep. That one we'll get to in a little bit here as well, in terms of the ending cap here as well, because there's some other things that there's some other fillers things we have to talk about as well.
Yeah, so the thing is, I don't know how people are going to approach these recaps, but the thing is, you might like them, you might not, but for me it's like, they were fine enough, just kind of would have done something different. Okay, so, now I need to talk about Jane Foster's character in this movie, because Natalie Portman is back. However, though, she's got a little ailment.
Very stage 4 ailment of cancer, basically.
Yeah, and that was when they first bring this up with Darcy, because Kat Dennings does come back in this movie.
Yep.
When they bring her up, well, they kind of treat it almost a little bit as a joke, almost, because stage 4 is a very serious stage.
Yes, it is, but, well, Natalie tries to treat it as a joke, but, you know, the other character, I'm trying to get the name again. Darcy, she was like trying to tell her, hey, relax. You need to take this seriously. You need to, you know, at least keep yourself healthy enough if you want to get back to your work, basically. Now, you know, Jane was like, no. I gotta get back to work. It's like, no, you're at stage 4. You don't have much time left, and if you want to, keep living while under these conditions, you gotta fight this first before you go back to work.
Yeah, but she's very dedicated to her work, and I mean, the scenes showing her like suffering with the cancer, these are actually very serious scenes.
Yeah. And
I wouldn't say they treat it. Well, I think what I was trying to say was when Darcy and Jane are talking about the stage 4, you know, when they talk about it, they kind of have somewhat of a funny angle to it, but not too much. That's where I was saying they kind of almost treat it like a joke of sorts. Yeah. But the actual serious scenes, they're really well done. They show that she's in desperation. She's trying to do everything she can to continue her work despite the suffering she's going through.
Yeah.
And they do provide an explanation for the cancer. She got it from her mother.
Yeah.
Because it is known that you can get cancer within a family history. Yeah. So, good explanation, movie.
Yeah, that was for sure. Although sad, but still true, yeah.
Yeah, and so, eventually, Jane picks up this book where she reads about Mjolnir, and she finds it can give strength, stamina, and great health.
Yeah.
Well, see, yes, it'll make you great health. It doesn't actually take away your illness, though.
No, it does not. But, I mean, but again, because of that, though, because of her connection with, you know, and this is one of the things you were kind of confused about a little bit as well, was Jane actually gained the power of Thor.
Yeah, because how it works with Mjolnir is that whoever is worthy will wield the power of Thor. And we saw this in Avengers Endgame when Captain America, he's worthy and can wield it. Yeah. But with Jane, it's like, you wield the power, yet you become She-Thor. And
Yeah.
I'm like,
Well,
what
again-
exactly made her worthy again?
Well, again, she made Thor more, worthy, basically, of actually becoming not just a proper god, a god that's actually helpful for others, but a superhero. That's one thing. Another thing, which was probably another big thing too, is during the second flashback, during the second, time loop thing, with talking about the X and stuff like that. Thor talks to Mjolnir, and he told, basically said, keep this, as a promise, like that, protect Jane. The rune kind of like was built, Mjolnir built a rune into himself. I'd say himself or herself, whatever the case is. But Mjolnir,
It built it into itself.
a rune, basically, kind of like a little rune. Kind of like depicting a, Thor's, kind of like a command, basically. Kinda like, you could say a command seal, basically.
So yeah, that was like Thor's basically telling the Hammer, I need you to protect the woman I love.
Yep.
But give her my powers if you have to.
It's more of just the first part, just protect her. And that goes by saying no matter the cost, basically. That could be any sort of way.
I guess
Giving her the power of Thor, basically, is one of them. But at the same time, go into this whole, the cancer and her getting the power of Thor, like you said. This is also very, you could sort of say cliche, so to speak.
Now, how's it cliche?
Because she has a sickness and she uses a greater power. Now, because she uses a greater power, her time living is shortened.
Oh,
Very much so.
yeah. It's
Because
like,
she could have lived on a little bit longer. But instead, the amount of time she used it, her life gets cut short.
yeah, that was actually something that sort of gave her character what's the right term for it? It basically gave her like a sort of. It was a great feeling, but it will shorten my lifespan. Of sort, I don't know what I'm getting at.
It's almost like a cliche in terms of like some either superheroes or a person getting a great power per se.
There is a comparison I can make with the great power, though. Did you ever see Death Note, the anime?
I did see Death Note.
So in Death Note, the Shinigami Ryuk, he's
Yeah.
basically offering to Light, I could give you the eyes of the Shinigami, and you can have all this power, but it will shorten your lifespan. Or I could tell you how much longer you have left to live. And Light does not take advantage of the Shinigami eyes.
Yeah.
That, I feel, was like kind of maybe a somewhat comparison.
You also could technically, theoretically say, Avatar Aang from The Last Airbender.
Don't give it away, I haven't seen the whole series.
Okay, and then I will talk about that then, yep.
So yeah, I mean, in regards to the She-Thor, because I know there's some people that do not like this from the comics.
Yeah.
I know there's fans that don't like it as much. And what I was concerned with the She-Thor, because I did state this in the Doctor Strange when we were talking about the trailer for this movie, they were going to pull an Abby from The Last of Us Part 2, where the creators would be like, this has never been about you, Thor. It's always been about her. And they propel her and they force her down our throat,
Oh, yeah?
I was concerned, but that didn't happen here, and I'm happy that didn't happen here.
No, because it is still a Thor movie, even though it is Love and Thunder, but you could say it's a little bit more about She-Thor, but no, again, since she is dying from cancer, you can't you can't force it down, That is an issue right there, though, that is presented during the film, but it's not about her, because if it was, well, you're not going to see her in the next film because she'd be dead.
Yeah, so I was concerned they were going to do that. Thankfully, they didn't do it. And for the most part, they don't make her where she's all-powerful and is better than everybody else. She's kind of on equal terms, I could say.
It's equal term, but again, since she is new, she's not really powerful, because again, it's like any other ordinary person, all of a sudden they get slapped by saying, you're a superhero.
Yeah.
So-
I was kind of surprised how well she could fight, but even though she could fight pretty good, she wasn't all-powerful and easily kicked everybody and
Yeah.
defeated everybody,
Yeah.
I'm happy they didn't do that, because had they done that, it would have destroyed the movie for me.
Well, yeah, no, she was able to defeat all the minor, minor enemies per se pretty handily. The major ones, she had to battle, a little bit as well, and she took some battle damage.
Yeah, so they showed some restraint, and I like that, because had they gone full crazy with
Yeah.
this, it would not have been very good.
Yeah.
Oh, the other thing I do want to talk about is she's dying, and
Yeah.
at the end, Jane Foster actually dies.
Yeah, I mean, again, each time she used the hammer, and Thor and it was even mentioned too at the last time, when she's on the bed too, she used it one more time. That's it.
Yeah, and I will say this though, this is the second major franchise where Natalie Portman dies. I know what the first one is. It's Star Wars.
Yep, that is true, yep.
Because she died at the end of episode 3.
Yep.
And obviously there was a love in her life and he couldn't save her. I'm not trying to compare the two. I'm just saying this is the second time where Natalie Portman's character dies in a major franchise.
Yep, she did die in a major franchise. Yep, indeed, for sure. But except the difference is, when she died in Star Wars, she gave out 2 kids that will eventually save the galaxy. While in this one, she goes to a different place with no kids being reproduced.
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of like that joke where Sean Bean dies in everything he's in. Are we going to see the same thing happen to Natalie Portman?
No, because Natalie Portman has been in other films and shows and stuff like that where her character doesn't die.
Yeah.
Whereas Sean Bean, most of his character whenever he's in it dies. Lord of the Rings, Game of Thrones, and
Lord of the Rings. You said Lord of the Rings.
Yep. Those 2 being the biggest ones so far, and there's other films too.
I haven't seen all of them, but
Yeah, most of them, it's whenever he's there, he's dead.
And then she spent the whole movie trying to figure out a catchphrase,
Again, you're a new superhero. You're going to try to figure it out.
And there are a few funny there's actually a few catchphrases because this movie's kind of cheesy almost.
Yeah.
But you could crank the cheese up to 11 by having Natalie Portman say, "By the power of Asgard, I have the power!" He-Man reference.
Yeah, no.
Or you could have had her do what She-Ra says, "For the honor of Asgard, I am She-Thor!" You could have done that, and that would have cranked the cheese up to 11.
Yeah, way much so, actually. Yeah.
But I know it could have cranked the cheese up to critical mass. You know what Natalie Portman could have said?
What?
She could have said, "Asgard, Prism, Power!" and then turned into Sailor Portman and just go on a rampage with that hammer.
Oh, God, no.
Come on! You gotta increase the cheese if you want to get really funny like that, but...
Yeah, no.
I don't know. They could have done something like that.
Yeah.
But I see what you're getting at. She's a new superhero. She has to come up with a catchphrase.
Yeah.
The thing is, though, not every superhero has a catchphrase, though.
Not everyone does. Not everyone, but most superhero does.
They have their famous lines, but it's I don't think every hero needs a catchphrase, though.
I mean, what was it? We got Superman, and Batman. I am Batman.
Well, yeah, you got Batman's famous lines, and then Superman. I am Kal-El, son of Krypton, born on. No, where am I getting at? I was raised by Jonathan and Martha Kent. Sorry, I'm having some trouble with my train of thought.
Wonder Woman, the Amazon warrior. I'm the princess of the Amazon. Or queen of the Amazon warriors and stuff like that.
Mm.
You have Arthur. You have Aquaman or King Arthur of Atlantis.
I'll bet some Marvel fan is gonna probably come up with this fake video where Jane Foster says it's Morbin time.
Yeah, there's probably something out there right now. But anyways, speaking of Marvel, I am Iron Man or Captain America. The good soldier and stuff like that.
Yeah, I mean that I guess that's something that kind of bothered me a bit, where she's trying to come up with a catchphrase. I just kind of feel like not every hero needs it. But then she ends up going with "Eat my hammer." But then she whispers to Thor what her real catchphrase is, which we don't hear.
You sure? I mean, she could have just said that. She could have just said "Eat my hammer."
Yeah, but again, this movie is kind of cheesy, so they're gonna crank the cheese up like that.
Yep.
But yeah, I guess really I didn't mind Natalie Portman's presence in this movie, and for the most part, they didn't go crazy with it. They showed some restraint.
Yeah.
Because I was afraid they were gonna do that, but they did what they did.
Yep.
So I do kind of want to talk about the other gods that show up in this movie, because we have a major one that would be Zeus.
And most all the other gods too, which we get to the city, which you confused initially the first time as Olympus.
Well, when I saw the trailer, because Zeus is clearly the head of this place, I was like, this is what Mount Olympus looks like? It's not Mount Olympus though, it's something else.
Yeah, it's like Optimate City or something like that, yeah. But it's basically to where all the Pantheon gods come in and meet, basically.
And basically, they're hiding here in fear of Gore the God Butcherer. But the thing is, when he gets Stormbreaker, he's gonna find you guys.
Well, it's a secret location, but everyone goes there per se. But although it's not really like a hiding place for Gore the God Butcher, even though Zeus said yes, they are. He is scared of Gore, but that wasn't really like the main reason. That's not like a secret hiding place per se, even though it is. But it's not really meant for hide from Gore. It's more of a we're gonna hide out here in this our little secret little fun area.
Yeah, there was this kind of weird god that was like an anime dumpling. Which,
yeah, the dumpling god.
Yeah, it had this like anime face, and I'm like, that's kind of creative.
Again, if you're gonna go through all gods in the pantheon, you better, you gotta get creative with it. Because again, they had the Aztec gods in there a little bit in there because you saw some people wearing Aztec suits.
Yeah, but here's the thing though. Outside of Zeus, Thor, the Cronin god, and the anime god, I couldn't tell who anybody was.
Yeah.
Like, I didn't see the Egyptian pantheon that well, or maybe they were in there, I just couldn't see them. There was probably Aztec in there. I know they mentioned Quetzalcoatl's in there. I didn't see any Mayan, and if we want to go really obscure, I didn't see any Mesopotamian in there.
Yeah, nor again, there wasn't really a whole lot of like the Hindus or the Buddhism.
Yeah, they didn't show any Hindu gods.
Nor the other, maybe even Roman gods too, per se. Even though
aren't the Roman and the Greek gods?
They're very similar as well. But you could have made something up, this is like the twin brother per se.
Yeah, I mean they could have done that. But then there's like some gods that I'm pretty sure they can't show out of fear of a backlash or people going blasphemy. Like there's some people you can't show it because you'll have people screaming that,
True.
Because I remember reading, I saw this post that Russell Crowe was not supposed to play Zeus originally. He was supposed to play Satan, which I'm like, that's not the person I would cast if I was going to put that guy in the movie.
No.
But again, they can't show everybody because if they did, well, we might have had some people going blasphemy or having meltdowns or something.
Because of the depiction of their what they believe in not being shown very well or represented very well.
Yeah.
Although Mesopotamian gods, it would have been interesting to see how they would have done, Gilgamesh and at least the god version of Gilgamesh, even though Marvel has already done Gilgamesh through the Eternals.
Oh yeah. But then again, Eternals wasn't that compelling of a movie.
Yeah.
So anyway, Russell Crowe is in this movie, and he plays Zeus. And I'm going to say something that I think most people will not agree with me with. I didn't like Russell Crowe as Zeus. I did not like his performance at all in this movie.
I mean, he did Zeus, I would say, at least being the more laid-back Zeus, pretty well, per se. Even though it's like, yeah, you would have rather see him be more of like the other figure you see of Zeus, which is being more very similar to like the God of War Zeus.
Yeah,
being the whole strong and thunderous and fearful stuff like that. This is more of like the other version of where it's like he's a little bit more laid back. He's still very strict, but he's not that he's not like as like. Boosh.
Yeah, because I mean, God of War had one of the best depictions of Zeus. And then there was a Netflix anime, Blood of Zeus. I did like their depiction of Zeus in that movie.
Yeah.
And honestly, you could have cast Liam Neeson as Zeus in this movie. Like, if you were making this movie a serious epic fantasy film, and you cast Liam Neeson as Zeus, that actually would have been epic to see.
Would have been something. It would have been more of a wise, more wiseful and, sort of serious Zeus in this regard. But again, this one, they try to put it more as a not so serious moment Zeus.
Which is why I had a lot of trouble with this, is that this is just not how I imagine Zeus. This is not how I picture him.
Yeah.
And I just feel like Russell Crowe, he's doing what he can with the material, but it's not really a performance that makes me go, wow, that was incredible,
He still was powerful enough because he did throw, Thunderbolt and nearly kill Gorn.
Nearly killed Korg.
Korn, yeah, he nearly killed Korn.
And like, I was like, oh, are they going to kill Korg in this movie? But no, they don't actually do it. His face survives.
Yeah, but his entire body was just crumbled into schmitz. Yep.
I did have some issues though with Korg in Ragnarok and this movie.
Yep.
Because the problem is, in the comics, Korg is not blue, he's yellow. So where did the blue come from? I have no clue. And then I made a joke that Heisenberg built Korg. Breaking Bad reference, by the way.
Oh, yeah.
And so, like, Taika Waititi, who's New Zealand, voices this character. If I were to show a picture of the comics Korg to people, and I told them, what do you think this guy would sound like?
Yeah.
New Zealand accent is not the first thing that would come to mind. Because in the animated Planet Hulk film, Kevin Michael Richardson, who's one of my favorite voice actors, he actually voices Korg, and I really like his performance. That is how I would imagine Korg to sound, you know? But here it's like, this either was Kevin Feige or Taika Waititi's decision, but making Korg funny, not a good idea. But that's a me thing, you know? So anyway, with the scene where Thor and Jane Foster and Valkyrie go to the other gods because they're like, you have to help us. This guy's killing all the gods. We have to do something or he's going to come after you. And all the other gods are like, whatever, man. We're just going to hide out here. That might be your problem. Woo!
Yep, and then Thor calling them out on being a coward.
Yeah, because the whole point of this is you meet your heroes, but they're not exactly who you think they are.
Yep.
Which, not bad, but I kind of would have wanted to see these other gods take on Gore the God Butcherer, you know?
Yeah, but that...
Some would die, but those are sacrifices that may have to be made, or something like that.
Okay, Laura Farquaad.
Sorry, I had to pull out a little Shrek reference in there.
Okay, yeah.
I'm sorry, I'm a big Shrek fan, so I had to do that.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah, I mean, the scene kind of reminded me of that scene in Man of Steel where Russell Crowe's like, you must understand, Krypton's going to explode. And the Council of Krypton, they're like, whatever, man. Or they're like, our energy reserves were exhausted. What do you expect us to do? Like, they don't want to do anything about it, you know?
Yeah.
And I'm like, yeah, it kind of is like that almost. Except Russell Crowe's performance, I liked it in Man of Steel compared to this.
Yeah, this one, well, again, the other gods, you know, they don't want to deal with it. And they know they'll probably die, which is why they hide out there. Well, some of them, most didn't know. Zeus probably did, but most probably didn't know. They just probably went there for the wines and drinks and other entertainment.
Yeah. So then, like, there's this scene where Zeus, he's talking to Thor about his problems, and he obviously won't do it. Then he, like, flicks off his cloak in disguise, and he's, like, buck-ass nude in this movie.
I mean, again, like, he flicked too hard, you know?
Yeah, and all the women, they faint. They're like, because they're just in awe at what they see, and I'm like, I don't know if we really needed that.
Yeah, no. Although Natalie and Dr. Jane and Valkyrie were like, actually, let's hold off on that charge thing real quickly. And I'm like,
yeah,
it's like, you guys wanted to do it, didn't you? Like, you can't lie. That's why you stopped for like that's why you stopped for like a hot minute. You wanted to go in there, but until he flicked all of his clothes off, now you pause. I see that.
Yeah, I don't know. It's just kind of a strange scene, and I'm pretty sure there were a lot of people that laughed when that scene came on. It's just not something I would do. Like, I would remove the cloak, but he'd still have his armor on, and everyone would be like, it's Thor, the God of Thunder. But they could easily see him because that was not a very good disguise.
Well, yeah, but I mean, you could probably kind of done that. But again, like the hood, it's like, is that actually you? Hold up.
Yeah, so then, like, he obviously gets the thunderbolt of Zeus because he's fed up with this, and he, like, throws it into the chest of Zeus, and then he, like, falls down. I actually thought he died during that moment.
Probably most people thought he died at that moment.
But then there's a mid-credits scene where it turns out he actually survived.
Yep, and we'll get to that in a little bit as well.
Actually, I think maybe we should talk about it here, because I'm not quite sure how it's going to impact the later MCU.
You saw Hercules coming in, though, and Hercules is a good part of the MCU.
Yeah, there is a Hercules within the Marvel Comics that I do know very little about. But I think Zeus he's like the men, the mortals. They don't they don't worship us. They don't look at us the same anymore. We got to do something about it. So I'm sending you, my son.
Yeah, and
Was it like that? I was confused.
it was basically kind of like that, and it's like when they look to the skies, they don't fear us or they don't look for us. They look for their superheroes, and it's like, well, I mean, if you're not sitting around like how you were for the most part, maybe people would respect you or try to look up to the gods for sky for you. But no.
But most people, I would say, within this lore is that they abandoned the gods and they favored science more than the gods,
And that's also another thing too, in terms of like, again, like as as science becomes more of a thing and more logic comes into thing, the gods are being pushed aside, basically.
Yeah, but they can live out their days in peace and not have to worry with the little squabbles of man and stuff.
Yeah.
Anyway, so what else is there to talk about with this one?
Well, I'll also say this before we move on towards the next scenes and stuff like that, though. When I saw it the first time in the movie theater, when Hercules somehow popped up for like that split moment, 2 girls screamed. I don't know why. I guess they might have heard about him and they might have read something about him in in the MCU comics or something like that. Maybe they were a fan of them, but for some reason they were like all giddy or excitement. Either they were a fan of the character Hercules or whoever was cast as Hercules. They might have seen him before in a previous film.
So when you saw it the first time, there were a couple fans going crazy over this?
Yes, there were two girls that were like, they screamed in joy or stuff like that. And me and a couple other guys were like, did we miss the memo?
You're going to see that in some stuff, I'm sure of it. But I'm surprised Zeus didn't get like Perseus or some of his other sons. Why Hercules? I know he's the greatest, but like, don't you think you could send in your other sons?
I mean, you could have, but Hercules is a more well-known. He has a really good strength and everything else like that. Combat ability and stuff like that. He would be a match to Thor.
Actually, I'm trying to figure out what else to say about this because there's not really much to talk about with this one. It's just
they grabbed the lightning bolt. They went to the Shadow Realm. They
encounter Gore, and he obviously traps them with all the vines and creatures. Well, not the creatures, but the vines.
Well, it was meant to get Stormbreaker back, which Stormbreaker did came back. They fought. Then Valkyrie got stabbed. Then they retreated. But
when they stabbed Valkyrie, I actually thought that she was gonna die.
Yeah,
but she didn't. She was like grievously injured.
Yeah, she could have died, but thankfully they got back. Right away, because if they would have stayed there maybe a few seconds longer or waited for a little bit, she probably would have died.
Yeah, also Sif's in this movie for relatively little screen time.
Yeah.
We see her, but then her arm gets cut off, and then she doesn't show up until the end of the movie.
Oh yeah, in terms of like the fighting, yep.
Yeah, she was missing in action throughout the third movie, and now she's showing up again. I know she was in some tie-ins with Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. and a bunch of other stuff.
Yep, and then...
But, I mean, they kind of tossed her character to the side after the Dark World.
Yep, and then another one, too. Again, this was going a little bit more to the end of the film as well, when they finally reach Eternity.
Oh, yeah, like...
The one that very much looks like the Watcher.
Yeah, it does look like the Watcher with all the stars and the cosmos. Yeah. I know what you're getting at. So, Gore goes into the Eternia place because he wants his greatest wish fulfilled.
Yep.
And his greatest wish is he just wants his kid back,
That was his greatest wish. He was about to wish to end all the gods, basically.
But then Thor convinced him, don't do it. It won't really bring you
salvation.
It won't bring you salvation or joy. So he ends up bringing his kid back.
Yep.
And then, he dies. Yep. And so he's like, take care of my daughter.
Yep. And also Dr. Jane dies and Gore dies, which leaves with Thor and basically Gore's daughter, which basically you could almost kind of say at that point an adoptive daughter. Yeah.
So and then like Thor's training. The character's name was Love. He's training her now to be like his successor.
Yeah, so to speak, or like a kid per se. It's like,
yeah, because it's kind of it's kind of interesting because Thor actually has had a daughter before in one animated Avengers movie I've seen. Yeah. There's an animated Avengers film called Next Avengers: Heroes of Tomorrow where the Avengers had kids,
Yeah.
But the Avengers were beaten by Ultron. Like, Ultron pretty much killed them all,
Yeah.
except for the Hulk. And I think Thor went back into Asgard, but it's been a while since I've seen the movie. So Tony Stark, he like takes all the kids into his custody and protects them, trains them before they're ready to take on Ultron. And Thor has a daughter of his own who looks just like him, and she's got a sword, and she becomes like the goddess of thunder by towards the end of the movie. So I'm like, are they going to do the same thing here with this character? Like, she's going to basically be the successor? It sure looks like it.
Yeah. Although she'll have some interesting, very much space magic of her own, basically, considering that, you know, Eternity kind of brought her back to life, basically, so she has more unique abilities.
Yeah, and so I think that's all I need to say about that character, but we will probably get a successor. When I said Sif was tossed to the side, there was something I do remember in the first recap, is that he, like, Korg mentions the Warriors 3, but he calls them this guy, and whoever that guy was.
Yep.
I mean, I kind of remember their names almost, but those characters were like, they were played a huge part in the first movie, and then in the second movie, they were like there, but then they get killed off in the third movie.
Yeah.
I guess really those characters weren't that important.
Well, yeah, because again, like, first time, you know, Thor might have, like, mentioned them just because it's like, you know, a lot of them, they probably know each other. But at some point, then they become minor, so to speak, if they are not that important per se. They did mention one character, though, like the name, but that was like at the ship, you know, during Infinity War.
Oh yeah, speaking of Infinity War, the Infinity Cones in New Asgard, because I like how New Asgard's kind of become this like new home, but also a tourist attraction.
I mean,
so that must be how they make their money.
I mean, you kind of have to. It's like your residence basically in Earth per se. You gotta have to go into Earth customs basically, which is if you want to make money as this new city and try to thrive, you gotta make it a little bit more touristy a little bit.
Yeah, so it is interesting how New Asgard's basically evolved from what it was in Endgame. Yeah. I don't know if we're going to see more of it in future movies, but you never know.
Yeah.
I also do like the use of Guns N' Roses in this one.
Oh yeah.
Because whenever they use a Guns N' Roses song, it fits appropriately with the scene that it's in. Like Welcome to the Jungle with the first action sequence, where you see Thor, he's like swinging his hammer around. Yeah. He's like being a hero, being great. I like the use of that. Paradise City with New Asgard, very well done.
Yep.
And then Sweet Child of Mine, always great to hear that. And then November Rains in the movie, which was put to good use.
Yeah.
So that, I feel, was a step up from Ragnarok, because in Ragnarok, they used Led Zeppelin's Immigrant Song, which I felt was, again, really inappropriate for a movie like that, because Ragnarok could have been so much more, but they wasted it.
Yep.
And I just felt that song, like, it just doesn't match like what I had in mind with the movie, or it just feels like it's still playing along with that comedy fest, you know? Yeah. But that's one of the reasons why I really liked this one and was genuinely okay with it, is that it has its, you could say, humorous moments, but it's not a full-on comedy fest. It's got some serious story stuff to it.
Yes, it does.
Because I like that, it's almost like the filmmakers knew that with Ragnarok, we may have made some people mad, so we're not going to make this one super funny, but we'll have some humorous moments in there that people can laugh at.
Yep.
Because there were some criticisms that this movie is tonally inconsistent. I didn't quite get that.
Not really. There wasn't really a lot of inconsistent, and some of the like the negative reviews, I was like, why negative? There was some that was like, oh, it was the lowest box office rating or something like that too. I'm like, I thought it was good.
Lowest box office, it's doing okay.
Yeah.
You want to talk about low box office, Eternals wasn't exactly a big moneymaker.
No, it was not, yeah.
And I know The Incredible Hulk wasn't a big moneymaker either.
Yeah.
But this one, I mean, yeah, there's not really much to say about it, really. It's kind of a standard Marvel movie, because unlike Doctor Strange, where there was a ton of things to say about it, this one, I mean, it's giving us a new adventure for Thor, and, well, it's got its place. But, I mean, we're just going to kind of have to wait and see how the next few movies play out.
For sure, yeah.
Because, I mean, now I just kind of wonder, how's Black Panther 2 going to turn out?
That one's going to be interesting in terms of, you know, Black Panther, the actor, is dead, and they're depict him as dead.
Yeah,
which means now I want to say the sister now takes on that role of Black Panther, just because she does. I know in the comic at some point becomes Black Panther, so it's like that succession basically.
Yeah, that's what they're gonna do. But okay, so yeah. I just didn't want to spoil too much. I talked about all the moments that I wanted to talk about and the things I liked and the things I was like iffy about, you know? But I would say overall, Thor Love and Thunder is, again, like I said earlier, the second best movie within the Thor subset of films. Because it's not as boring as Dark World and Ragnarok were. It's not infuriating as Ragnarok was. This one was like, okay, we're trying to make sure people get something out of this, you know? Because I was warned ahead of time that this wasn't good. This actually ended up being a little better than I thought it was going to be. So I'm kind of surprised.
It was, again, good film. I saw it the first time, and second time, still a good film.
Yeah, so, I mean, if I were to watch it again, it'll probably reaffirm my feelings that this isn't that bad of a movie. Yeah. I would say check it out if you can. And if you are concerned about some things about it, don't worry. They don't go super crazy with some of the stuff, and you'll get something out of this.
Yep.
Now, I think because we've sort of talked about all the moments we wanted to talk about, the last thing I will say is, where does this rank among the Phase 4 movies?
Up, like mid-upper, basically. I mean, probably... Again, it gets close to like the top 10 or top 5 or however many movies there are right now, but it is not like not like Phase 4 like really good films or something like that, like like the Shang-Chi or something like that.
Oh yeah, Shang-Chi and Black Widow were the best ones for me.
Black Widow was a little bit lower on my tier, but Shang-Chi still has to be top
Well,
tier.
The reason why, again, I'm putting Black Widow up there is because coming from the fallout of Spider-Man Far From Home, I needed something like Black Widow.
Yeah.
That's why I just enjoy it for its serious tone, not getting too crazy with the comedy, and being extremely action-packed.
Yeah. It was good. It was a pretty good one. Don't get me wrong, but I would have to put Black Widow a little bit, just a little bit down low. Shang-Chi was a really good film.
Yeah, I think really... I'm going to put Spider-Man No Way Home above Thor Love and Thunder.
Yeah. Because
with Spider-Man No Way Home, it's more of a fascinating film than Love and Thunder is. Because, don't get me wrong, I liked Love and Thunder enough, but it kind of feels like standard Marvel stuff until we can get to the really big stuff. Whereas No Way Home, that movie had a huge impact.
Yeah, I would probably say Shang-Chi would be 1, No Way Home 2, Doctor Strange 3.
I'm keeping Doctor Strange at number 3 too, because I feel Doctor Strange did a great job with the multiverse and showing all the cool stuff, while still working within any restraints it had. But Doctor Strange, I would say, is better than Thor: Love and Thunder.
Yeah, I would put Thor right behind Doctor Strange.
Yeah, and still Eternals is going to be the weakest of Phase 4.
Yeah,
for obvious reasons.
Yeah.
So if anything, Thor: Love and Thunder, it's better than Eternals. But Spider-Man No Way Home, Doctor Strange, Multiverse of Madness, Shang-Chi, and Black Widow, all better than Thor Love and Thunder for me.
Again, you have Black Widow up there. I don't. I probably would have Black Widow, for me personally, below Thor. So I would put Shang-Chi, No Way Home, Doctor Strange, Thor, Love and Thunder, Black Widow, Eternals.
Okay. So yeah, and the funny thing is, this originally was going to be the last film of Phase 4 before they added on more movies.
Yep.
And as many of you have probably heard, Phases 5 and 6 are on the way, and we're getting some very big things down the road.
I believe we're about entering into Phase 5 now.
Well, Black Panther Wakanda Forever is going to be the last Phase 4 film.
Yeah.
And then it's, I think it's Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania that's going to start Phase 5.
Yep, because that gets now officially rolling into more of the deeper into the multiverse, and also Kang the Conqueror now involving a lot more with this whole multiverse stuff.
Yeah, and plus they had Rick and Morty writers work on Ant-Man 3, so we're going to get some really crazy sci-fi stuff.
Yep. And then it'll also vet you to later on after Kang stuff a little bit. Maybe he still be alive, maybe not, who knows.
We'll see how
Dr. Doom was talked about in Secret Wars.
Oh yeah, because I really want to see Doctor Doom in the MCU. I also want to see Galactus and MODOK.
Yeah. But again, I know some people are like, when they think of Doctor Doom, they immediately think of the Fantastic Four.
And they're coming, and I'm really excited about that because we
Yeah.
might finally get a good Fantastic Four movie.
But like one article or something I've never talked about, you don't necessarily have to have the Fantastic Four with Doctor Doom. You can have Doctor Doom in other films. As
Yeah, that's the thing is, like, with the upcoming Fantastic Four film, I really do not want the villain to be Doctor Doom. Because he's been the villain in, like, virtually every one of the other Fantastic Four movies.
Yeah, he's been practically every. Whenever you reference Doctor Doom, most of the time, the Fantastic Four is always like either the front suit or the following suit with it.
So I just feel like there are other villains the Fantastic Four can fight before we get to Doctor Doom, you know?
Yeah.
And I'm hoping they do that, but you never know.
You never know, just because, again, like, I get that there are some villains that are more iconic towards a group of heroes or a singular superhero, like how, like, whenever you mentioned Lex Luthor,
Yeah,
Superman
Lex Luthor.
Superman follows suit. Joker, Batman.
Well, with the Superman movies, people have criticized them for the fact that Lex Luthor was virtually the villain in every one of those older movies.
Yeah.
And he wasn't Batman v Superman, but Man of Steel at least didn't show Lex Luthor.
No.
But I appreciate Superman the Animated Series for having more villains than just Lex Luthor.
Yeah. And also in terms of the Marvels, iconic, like villain, superhero kind of like thing. Red Skull, Captain America, most part.
But at least they varied the villains throughout the other character movies.
They do, which is a good thing. But most of the time, though, when sometimes there are certain villains that are almost always tied to a superhero or a group of superhero.
But I guess I can just...
Kind of like how the Shredder, whenever you hear Shredder, what do you think of?
You think of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Exactly. Or if you think of Megatron, you think of Transformers.
Yep, in terms of Optimus Prime, yeah.
Yeah, but I think what I'm trying to get at here is, like, the general public with Superman, all they know is Lex Luthor and General Zod. They don't know anybody else.
Well, you could also say Doomsday with Superman.
Well, yeah, there's Doomsday, but there's, like, other Superman villains the general public doesn't know too much about.
And Darkseid. So Superman really has, like...
I see Darkseid more of as a Justice League villain than a Superman villain. I know he's a big Superman villain in some of the media. It's just Darkseid, I feel like, is a bigger threat to the Justice League than he is to Superman.
Just because of how he's practically, even as Superman would put it, more, like, 10 times stronger than Superman. Like, Superman has to get more energy or more help to even have a chance against Darkseid, per se. But the reason why how Darkseid would almost most of the time win against Superman is just because he has more brains, or at least he's smart in intellect, basically.
Yeah, and...
Which is why how in one anime, or a couple of anime films or something like that, Batman, even not being super strong, can't get the upper hand on Darkseid.
With the intellect.
With the intellect. Especially with the one film where Darkseid kidnaps, Superman's cousin.
Yeah, he kidnaps Kara Zor-El.
But Batman had a little thing to where he hacked a code in the system to where
he basically hacked the arming code, which was encrypted.
Yep, which would send out a swarm, basically, because one Hellspawn could destroy a planet, but multiple, or like a
large quantity of them. What will happen if you set them off simultaneously?
On a single planet, yeah. So, and Darkseid feared that because it's practically like, one nuke could blow up, a planet or something like that, or like a massive nuke. Now imagine putting 500 or 1,000 nukes and setting them off simultaneously.
You would basically destroy an entire planet.
Yep. And probably maybe go a little bit further, based on the explosion and stuff like that as well. But yes, and ultimately, it will blow up the planet. Which Darkseid was like, oh, no, this is my world, my headquarters, my basically entire base. I need this to not only live, but also do my things. You can't just blow it up.
So yeah, we've kind of rambled on a little bit there, but this was not that bad of a film. I enjoyed it for what it was, and I think for the most part, it did not hurt nearly as bad as Thor Ragnarok did.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's like Taika Waititi learned from mistakes or something, and just wanted to try and make a fun movie that is good for summer blockbuster time,
Yeah, that's for sure. Yep.
So yeah. I know there probably wasn't much to talk about, but we talked about a lot of the stuff, a lot of the moments and things we liked, for the most part.
Yeah.
And the movie did give me a good time, and I probably would watch it again once in a blue moon, but it is what it is.
Yep.
So anyway, we are going to probably take a little break from these for a little while. So our next movie will probably be Black Adam in October.
Black Adam, yeah, I believe so. I think that's like the first one before.
That's before Shazam 2 and Avatar 2.
Oh yeah.
I can't recall if there's any November releases that we might go check out.
And then you also got Wakanda, yeah.
Yeah, that's a November release. Yeah, I forgot about that.
Yep.
But anyway, we're going to probably take a little break from these for a little while. But there you go. That's Thor: Love and Thunder. I think, we have mostly enjoyed Phase 4 for the most part. I know people have been calling it Phase Bore because it's mostly, some people said it's mostly filler. But you know what? These are fine enough. I can live with them.
Well, you also have to keep in mind, though, for those people that say it's boredom or something like that, Phase 4 is a aftermath of a big entire conflict, basically, or a big giant, lead up. It's a build up, now it's an aftermath, but now we have a new timeline, per se, which is now setting up the
bigger Kang dynasty and
the Kang / quantum, the quantum, or the multiverse sort of thing. It's ending one story and now starting this whole setting up the new story arc, basically, of now multiverse arc.
Yeah, because that's what they're calling it now, the multiverse saga. Although we've mostly seen the multiverse thing happen in Spider-Man: No Way Home and Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. Though we will definitely
Loki.
Yes, that too. We're gonna see more of this in Quantumania.
Yep.
I am sure of it. And Kang Dynasty and Secret Wars, we might see a little bit of it in there. Maybe the Fantastic Four will explore it. I don't know.
Who knows? But Kang Dynasty, definitely for sure. Maybe Secret Wars, yeah. Probably who knows about the Secret Wars. But yeah, definitely Kang Dynasty, because he's practically the one that's, responsible for it as well.
Yeah, so we're going to get some really cool stuff in the future. But anyway, that's our little reaction to Thor: Love and Thunder, and I hope you guys are okay with it, because we were okay with this movie.
Yep.
And we will be back next time with DC and Black Adam, so let's hope that's good. See you next time.